While daylight savings time has its pros and cons, there is no real practical reason for this system to still be in existence. Large parts of the world no longer use it, and even Arizona doesn't follow it, causing confusion even within the United States. Sure, it's nice to feel like you've gained an hour, but come spring, it gets paid right back. We're only fooling ourselves by changing the clock. People manage to survive for a long time without the concept of daylight savings, and it just is not necessary. While there are far more important issues in this day and age to get riled up about, it sure would be nice to not have to memorize which countries or specific areas do or do not have daylight savings. And it would save us all an awful lot of unnecessary clock based bewilderment. We don't need to be as insanely simple as the Chinese with their one time zone for an enormous chunk of land, but we can sure find a way to be consistent and live with it throughout the year in a 21st century world.
Do we need daylight savings? Yes or no? Unequivocally, I would say no, we don't. Studies have shown daylight savings cost our country millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of wasted hours and time, individuals waking up late, missing their alarms, showing up late to work, loss in productivity, confusion. It's really an outdated tool that we no longer have a need for and really didn't need to begin with. Often the farmers are blamed for why we have daylight savings, but that's actually a myth. There's really no more need for daylight savings anymore, and I don't think individuals from either side of the political aisle feel particularly fond of it. So I think it's time for it to go.
I'm David Grasso, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Minute. Today's question, is daylight saving time still needed? Here to talk about this are Nate Lerner and Ajay Bruno, both friends of old. How you both doing?
Doing all right. How about you?
Great.
Well,
So you both agreed, left and right, that daylight savings time isn't needed anymore. So why are we still doing it?
Well, if only we could agree on these issues, on more issues from left and right, but at least there's this one. Yeah, this is something which kind of transcends political lines. There was a Rasmussen poll I saw. It was from 14, but it said 33% support the need for daylight savings. So that shows you most of the country does not think this is something we really need. I mean, there's pros and cons. There's reasons why they introduced it and not. But there's also a lot of drawbacks too. It throws you for a loop. It can make people go crazy, be depressed, think that it's dark at an earlier time. So, yeah, I know they say that it encourages activity, but it shouldn't have to be a little bit later out for people to get up and actually do something. So I think it's kind of just a mind trick, and people should not be that predictable. Maybe they are, but they shouldn't be that predictable that they need to be told that the time is earlier or later to be able to do different things. So not needed, and I think we probably should change it.
So I'd like to add to what AJ said. It actually causes more heart attacks and people actually die from the change. But I want to go back to something Nate mentioned, which is people always blame the poor farmers. It's like, damn those farmers. That's the reason we have daylight saving time. But as you pointed out, Nate, that's an urban myth, isn't it?
it is, yeah. Actually, I wish I could remember the exact reason. But I remember seeing a John Oliver episode on this subject where they did a whole thing on how the farmers have been blamed. When we interview people, they literally, when people do have an answer for why we have daylight savings, which many people actually don't know, it's typically the farmers were blamed, and that's actually what I was taught growing up. But that's not the case. I think it goes back to something that happened during the war. Maybe AJ knows. I don't. But it's that right there just shows the fact that we don't have a good reason for it. Just kind of shows to begin with that it doesn't really belong in the modern era. I think one of the things that progressivism seeks to do is to improve upon a lot of the flaws that from years past. And this is one of those. This is one of those inefficient problems with our country that the fact that we have to report to the IRS what our taxes are when they know. It's just kind of one of these things that doesn't make sense that we should get rid of.
Yeah, so AJ, Nate brings up a good point. Whether you're left or right, why is change so hard? Like, this is a no-brainer. Get rid of daylight saving time, move on. Why can't we just get this across the finish line?
Well, it's a weird thing for people to be so conservative about, but I guess something that entails calendar and what we've been doing for decades and decades at this point, people don't like change, even if it's a good thing. So maybe that's the issue. I mean, can we all get together and the 49 states that still do it, stop doing daylight savings time? And we still have most of, I think, the Western Hemisphere, Europe, they all do it. The rest of the world, not so much. So it's hard to get that many people together and say, let's stop doing this. What are the valid reasons? There are pros and cons, like I said, but it would be nice if we get rid of it. So someone has to lead the way. Who that should be, I don't know, but change has to start somewhere. So otherwise, we're going to be just confused forever. So.
Yeah, and not so long ago, Nate, the United States was typically ahead of the curve, and now it seems like we just are stuck in our ways. And even though Ben Franklin originally thought of this idea, if you want some trivia, right? It seems like this is antiquated and we're ready to move on. Why has the United States stopped being a leader and doing what makes sense?
Yeah, it's one of the more unfortunate things with our country is that, you look at the stimulus bill, for example, that before Congress right now, during the pandemic, when this has been the problem for months, where we're trying to get this bill passed. You have things like tax reform, which I mentioned, which are immensely popular, gun reform, which is popular. You have very popular issues, some of which aren't even political, like daylight savings. And Congress is just, they really struggle to create big monumental change. I think there is something to be said for the fact that this would require like a lot of different moving parts to be addressed. It might just be more trouble than it's worth at a certain point. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said for a nation as advanced as we are, as strong as we are, that can quickly respond to the times and can change like this when there is consensus and when it's clear there isn't going to be a lot of blowback from it down the road. When you factor in change, you always want to be cautious of, okay, well, what risks are there? But in this case, they're pretty minimal. And so it would be a true test and a true testament to our nation if we could address problems like this quickly and easily, but it says a lot that we can't.
So, Ajay, conservatives get dinged for not wanting change, but you're sitting here advocating for change. Tell me, why is it so hard to change our political system?
I know, I guess I'm a real radical in that aspect, but it would be nice if we could do that. But when we're talking about issues that I guess have such profound importance and don't seem so trivial, people get really entrenched. And nowadays we have a situation where it's never been so bitter and divided, and it's just ugly in every way. So it would be nice if there was some sort of middle ground on every issue where we could maybe agree across political lines like this, that maybe this is kind of a dumb idea. Maybe we can find some common ground. So a lot of issues, it's really hard with that though. And until kind of the situation changes, if it changes, I don't see how we come back from that. It would be nice, but that's a really tough question, and I don't know who has a good answer for it. So.
Well, thank you both for being lovely to each other and agreeing. We have a special prize for people who agree with us. We ring our imaginary bell. So thank you both for being here, and thank you for not contributing to the terrible partisan bickering in this country.
You're welcome.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. We love having you here. I'm David Grasso from Bold TV. Stay tuned to many more Millennial Minutes right here.